Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Butler County Chamber of Commerce State of the Commonwealth Legislative Breakfast, presented by Independence Health System. My name is Alan Hassler. I am the sitting chair for the chamber this year. And you're stuck with me this morning instead of Jordan Grady, who last year could not do this because he had a case of laryngitis. And I'm scanning, I'm looking for him. Where are you at, Jordan? There you are. So he had a good excuse last year. I don't know what the excuse is this year. He works for me, but I'm up here, so I don't know what's going on, but that's okay. So the Butler County Chamber of Commerce is a community-focused organization dedicating to improving quality of life and promoting free enterprise in Butler County. We're loud and proud to be the second largest chamber of commerce in Western Pennsylvania and relentless advocates of pro-business policy in Pennsylvania. I'd like to take a moment to thank our awesome staff, Tanya Wise, Jennifer Monaco, Christian Shields, and our newest assistant marketing coordinator, Chris Churden. So give them a round of applause, please. I would also like to thank the Chamber's event committee member, Autumn Patterson of Next Tier Bank, for the help at the registration desk. Thank you, Autumn. There are several board members of the Chamber and our affiliate organizations here today. If you'd take a moment, please stand and be recognized. Come on. Here we go. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Today, we're joined by several elected officials and key leaders in our region. I'd like to acknowledge all of them, so please hold your applause until the end. From Senator Bob Casey's office, Trace Lagarde from Senator John Fetterman's office, Mitchell Henderson from the County of Butler. We have our three commissioners, Leslie Oshie, Kim Geyer, and Kevin Boozle. Recorder of Deeds, Michelle Mostello. And from our townships and municipalities, we have Jackson Township Supervisor Jay Grinnell, Marsboro Mayor Greg Hartung, Clinton Township Supervisors Kathy Allen, William Duncan, Butler Township Commissioners Jim Lockheiser, Sam Zerzolo, Ed Natale, and David Rice, Cranberry Township Supervisors Karen Newpole and Mike Manipole, Mary Hess from the Zillionople Borough, and Butler County's Chief of Economic Development and Planning, Mark Gordon. Thank you all for being here this morning. If anyone was accidentally omitted, I apologize. A big thank you to our sponsors who year in and year out make these great events possible. Independence Health System, Pennsylvania American Water, Gateway Engineers, XTO Energy, Seneca Resources, National Fuel, Herbert, Rowland, and Grubik, Inc., Butler County Manufacturing Consortium, Coherent, Butler County Tourism and Convention Bureau, IQC Consultants Incorporated, Westco Bank, Westbanco Bank, sorry, excuse me, Armstrong, Energy Transfer, Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney, Univest Financial, Alliance for Nonprofit Resources, and of course our friend Kenny Broadbent at the Steamfitters Local Union 449. Thank you. I would now like you to join me in welcoming Karen Allen, President of the Butler and Clarion Hospitals of Independent Health System, to the podium.
Thank you. What a wonderful honor for Independence Health System to be the lead sponsor for this impressive event. Independence Health System is the largest employer in Butler County, and we truly appreciate working with the elected officials who represent us so well. These are complex issues and complex times to understand, so we really need to collaborate and work with our elected officials so that we're sure that we are creating an environment in Butler County for industry to succeed. I know that I truly appreciate the work with the local and the state officials, the support that Independence Health gets from our officials, and we look forward to continued dialogue so that we can continue to enhance Butler County. I live here, I work here, and I'm glad that we can do business here. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Again, my name's Alan Hassler. I'll be the moderator for this morning. A few housekeeping rules. Each panelist will be provided time to discuss relevant information and initiatives they're working on. At your table, you'll see blank note cards and pens. Please write down any questions you may have on these cards. Please make sure to add your name or your company's name to the questions. Questions with no names will not be accepted. A representative from the chamber will be around periodically to collect those. We will answer as many questions as time permits. Media will be given priority. Only questions relative to the discussion today will be answered. At your tables, you'll find some information in front of you also for you to reference. You can see the bios are listed in the program. And listen closely, there are email sign-up sheets in front of you. Please add your email to the sheet. You'll be sent a follow-up survey for today's event that we use to continually improve our events. That would be very helpful. There's also a scannable QR code with a link to the Chamber's Government Affairs Committee survey. We would appreciate it if you'd take just a few minutes to fill out that survey. It will help shape our future advocacy path. The PA State Chamber has also provided their top legislative priorities in their quest to making Pennsylvania more competitive. And we're also thankful to Matt from the Armstrong Community Channel, who's on site today to film and broadcast this event. That's the guy in the back. Thank you, Matt. So we're going to get started, and we'll start off with Senator Scott Hutchinson.
Thank you. It's great to be here this morning. I want to thank the Chamber and all your partners who helped put this event together and allow us to talk about some issues that are important to Pennsylvania. As state senator for the 21st district, a little bit of background. My district does include all or part of 6 counties here in northwestern Pennsylvania. I have all of Venango, Clarion, Warren, and Forest counties. I have a portion of Erie County, and I also have about 1/2 of the population of Butler County. So quite a wide-ranging district, but I am just honored and thrilled to be able to represent all of you in Harrisburg. As part of my duties in Harrisburg, I am on 5 different committees. I am the chairman of the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee deals with the revenue side of the budget, not how we spend the money, but how money is raised to run state government. And as part of that, my focus has always been on 2 things. I want to promote the free enterprise system, knowing that jobs are created by the private sector, not by government. Government just switches jobs from one place to another, but they don't really create anything. So promotion of the free enterprise system is key to all that we do. And on top of that, I try to do my very best to make sure that our tax code in Pennsylvania will help unleash the potential and promise of Pennsylvania. There are certain things that Pennsylvania, we have key strategic strengths, and we should be building on those strengths. And we should be more competitive with other states. And if we want to grow our economy, we have to be competitive in the tax code and in other ways also. But that's, as finance chair, that I really try to focus on that, including, as you well know, a couple years ago, we finally were able to start the reduction of the corporate net income tax here in Pennsylvania. And that is critical for us to be able to compete with other states. We started out at 9.99% 2 years ago, and we've started the phase down. As of 2024, we are now at 8.49, and we are keeping the path going. And hopefully within a couple of years, we will be in the middle of the pack. Instead of being the second highest corporate net income tax in the country, we'll be in the middle of the pack in a couple more years. So we have to keep that in focus because we compete with other states, we compete with other countries for where businesses want to expand and grow, and we want to be at the top of that list. Other committees I'm on the local government committee, I'm on the Health and Human Services committee, the Game and Fish committee, as well as the Environmental Resource and Energy committee. And on the Environmental Resource and Energy committee, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that and some things I've been working on there. I am the vice chairman of that committee, and one of the things that Pennsylvania is an energy giant. We have so much energy here, and we produce more energy than we use as a state, and that's a good thing because that means jobs are created here in producing that energy. But I'm also recently been focused with the chairman of the committee, Senator Gene Yaw from Williamsport, because something on the horizon is really scary. And it's something that I hope we can head off before it happens. And that is, there is a threat that Pennsylvania and all of the United States, quite frankly, that we are going to be entering a period of brownouts and blackouts for electric energy. And let me tell you how that's happening. So on the one hand, not only is there natural more usage of electric energy, people pick up your cell phone. Everything around us is electric. But in addition to that, government policies are forcing more electric use going forward. Quite frankly, forcing the use of electric vehicles. Across the board, there is this push to move us even faster into electric use going forward. But on the backside of that, we also have a major push, mostly through government policies, to move to intermittent electric sources. Solar, wind. They are not always on. If it's not a windy day, the windmills aren't turning. If it's overcast, if it's nighttime, the solar panels are not working. But we are too quickly shutting down the traditional broad energy sources like coal, electric, nuclear. We're shutting those down. Those are base load supplies, and replacing that with intermittent sources. And the two graphs are going to cross much too quickly. We are not prepared for that. And so one of the things I've been involved in is working with colleagues in the General Assembly of Ohio. We've had meetings both in Pennsylvania. First, we had a sit-down meeting with like-minded legislators from Columbus, Ohio, and they came to Pennsylvania, and we talked about issues of what Pennsylvania and Ohio can do to protect our citizens from the predicted blackouts and brownouts going forward. We had a hearing here in Pittsburgh with the Ohio legislators. Then we went to Columbus and had a hearing with more colleagues in the General Assembly of Ohio. And really what we're trying to say is we want to protect our states because we are energy producers. We produce more than we use, but we want to make sure that our citizens are not experiencing blackouts and brownouts because of what other states are doing. And let me finish up here with a quick illustration of how energy policies in other states impact Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, stories like this are happening time and time again. So down in Maryland is in the same electric grid that we are. And a couple of years ago, Maryland announced that they're going to reduce their CO2 emissions 60% by 2031, and with the ultimate goal of zero carbon emissions by 2045. So in the midst of that, a large coal-fired electric generation facility outside of Baltimore, they had been planning to convert from coal to an oil-based generation station. But so they were working through that process. This announcement was made, and they realized, the economics of this don't work. We are going to instead shut down in 2025, and they just announced this at the very end of 2023. We are going to shut down a 2,200 megawatt electric generation facility just outside of Baltimore. What does that do to Pennsylvania? Well, see, they think, well, we can just buy more off the grid if we shut these things down. Unfortunately, there's fewer and fewer excess megawatts being produced. To replace that 2,200 megawatt facility, it would take 15,400 acres of solar panels or 1,400 windmills to replace that one generating plant. But unfortunately, none of those projects is undergoing. It's not even being talked about. They're just shutting the plant and hoping there's enough electricity on the grid. Not only does that put us as a state and everyone else in the grid at risk, in addition to allow Baltimore to get enough energy once this closes, there's going to have to be upgrades, immediate upgrades to the grid in the Baltimore area. And unfortunately, even those upgrades will have to be partially paid for by the ratepayers in Pennsylvania. I think that's wrong. They are making these pie-in-the-sky policy decisions, and Pennsylvania residents are going to pay higher electric rates to make up so that the transmission lines are configured correctly in order to get energy to Baltimore. So decisions like this are being made every single day throughout the Northeast, really throughout our entire country. Of people have these pie-in-the-sky goals that can't practically work. So I think it's critical that we talk about this issue. I think it's important that we change Pennsylvania's policies, not for, and we'll get into this later, I'm sure, to talk about the governor's proposed policies for energy and take a different tack going forward. So with that, I just wanted to touch on those two things that I've been working on a lot in the last few months, and I look forward to your questions after this panel's done. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hutchinson. Senator Elder Vogel.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here again this year for your great legislative breakfast, and obviously we've got another full crowd this year, so that's wonderful. My district is the 47th district, which encompasses most of Beaver County. I have a slight strip across the bottom of Lawrence County, and I picked up some new areas last year when we were districted. I picked up Cranberry, Mars, Seven Fields, Middlesex, Adams, forward township areas. I had Zilly, Harmony, Jackson, had this area from before, but I picked that area up in southwest Butler County here, districting last year. So, but right now I'm chairman of the Senate Ag and Rural Affairs Committee. I'm also vice chair of appropriations. I'm on banking and insurance, environmental resources and energy, and I'm on transportation as well. So that's a broad scope of all the things that happen in Pennsylvania pretty much, I guess. So anyhow, right now, my legislative priorities are education is one of the big ones. Obviously, the governor put out a proposal to merge the community colleges and the Apache schools, and we had Secretary Mumine in front of us for the education secretary during appropriations. Didn't really have a true plan of how that was going to happen. A lot of I don't knows, and Chancellor Greenspan from Apache Systems had a lot of I don't knows as well. So a lot of questions to be answered there. But Senator Martin is putting together a package of bills, and the Education Committee just put out some bills last week here. This is just this week, I guess, on how to do that and how to possibly merge those, or if they get merged at all, or just how to put out more programs to entice more students to come to Pennsylvania to our colleges, and once they come, get them to stay. So that's part of the gist of what the bills are. We haven't seen them all yet really in complete total compliance or how they are, but we'll, as they get more out to everybody to look at, we'll have a better idea what that's going to look like. But obviously it's going to be a huge discussion point, I'm sure, during the budget season with the governor, because his plan and our plan don't quite mesh, but that's the way that goes, I guess. But anyhow, I'll talk about energy as well. Senator Hutchinson and I are both on Environmental Resource and Energy Committee, and it's been really a big sticking point, a big issue with the way the environmental regulations are, with the RGGI situation. I mean, Governor Wolf started the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative to shut down our coal-fired power plants and all that to make us a greener state. And obviously, we're not there. We're not going to be there for a while, but it's going to have an impact. And like we were saying, Senator Yaw was saying the other day, by 2026, PJM is saying we could possibly have brownouts or rolling blackouts here in Pennsylvania just because of our lack of the coal-fired power plants and things we're shutting down. We won't have enough energy. Talk about intermittent energy, which is the solar panels and windmills, aren't going to be enough to bridge the gap. So that's something that's very concerning. And for a governor who talks about not wanting to be second or not wanting to lose, which is Governor Shapiro, that's one of his main lines. It just was announced a week or so ago that West Virginia is building a 2,000 megawatt gas-fired power plant. So we're sitting on probably the second most amount of gas in the world, and West Virginia is going to build a 2,000 megawatt power plant, and we haven't built a plant here in Pennsylvania in a number of years. There was a big plant that was going to build a plant up in Renova, and that got drug out by DEP and everybody, regulations. Finally, it was going to be $1 billion deal, a gas plant in Renova. And they walked away from it last year because it just was too time consuming. They were just tired of pulling their hair out and banging their head against the wall, I guess. So, but that's the kind of situations we're up against with our regulations that we constantly keep trying to put a stop to, because everybody wants to be a business-friendly state, but at the same time, you can't be a business-friendly state and have all these regulations piled on top of you, and DEP fighting you tooth and nail, step by step, to do anything. So that's sort of kind of the conundrum we're up against. So, but we keep fighting, we keep trying. Obviously, I want to just tell you, my telemedicine legislation I've been working on for a number of years. Hopefully that legislation is going to get run next week. Senator Pittman called me the other day and said, we're going to run it next week. So finally, after 5 or 6 years, we can get that legislation put in place, which is legislation that just, we're already pretty much doing it now, but it's just putting the guardrails in place of how and why insurance companies pay and who pays for what, and if you get paid or don't get paid, or what doctors pay and what insurance companies pay for different services through telemedicine and that. So that's all that does right now. But I'm glad it's finally going to get that accomplished. Last year I was pushing a piece of legislation, SANE legislation, which is sexual assault nurse examiners. And I was thankful to say the governor signed that bill into law here back in December. So that's in place for hospitals and more people to be able to become SANE nurses and have the ability to, if you're a rape victim, you go to a hospital, you have the nurse there who's the examiner, who does it correctly. I mean, it's a time-consuming thing to do it right. Sometimes it takes 3 to 4 hours to do one, do it right, and to make sure it's done right when it's done, and not have to go someplace out of the state or somewhere else to get it done, because that way we don't want to have the victim be re-traumatized if they have to go to court and it ends up getting thrown out or something on a technicality because something wasn't done right. So I'm glad that's finally going to be a big deal, and finally passed and signed by the governor. which was a big initiative of mine for a number of years. And I just want to touch briefly also on broadband expansion. We got a lot of $100 million, I believe, from the federal government to do broadband expansion. And Armstrong here in Butler County got $16.6 million out of the Broadband Development Authority to expand broadband here in Southwest Pennsylvania through the Armstrong network here. So that's a good thing as well. So with that, I'll just listen to everybody else for now. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Vogel. Next, we'll have Representative Tim Bonner.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today. As Alan mentioned, my name is Tim Bonner, and I represent geographically the eastern 75% of Mercer County and approximately the northern 20% of Butler County. It's an honor and pleasure to represent those areas. My profession has been an attorney. I practiced law for 49 years. And my practice was primarily limited to 3 areas, which has helped me tremendously in my role as a state legislator. I have been a prosecutor for 20 years, and many of the issues that the General Assembly deals with are in criminal justice, particularly criminal justice reform. So I played a leading role in the Judiciary Committee along with Stephanie in addressing criminal justice issues. I also was general counsel and chairman of the board for Grove City Medical Center for 35 years. So I have a significant background in healthcare as well, which again is a major topic in the General Assembly. And finally, I was general counsel for Grove City College for 35 years as well. So education obviously is a critical issue at the state level. And I would say if the state could run our educational system as well as Grove City College runs its operation, would all be much better off. Some of the areas that I'm working in right now, I've been appointed by the House of Representatives to represent it in the impeachment proceedings against the Philadelphia District Attorney, Larry Krasner. Mr. Krasner is a very progressive prosecutor, does not believe in bail, does not believe in prosecuting gun offenses as a standalone offense. He wants it coupled with some other criminal activity of a felony nature. So if you just possess a firearm illegally, you're likely not to be prosecuted in Philadelphia County. He also refuses to enforce certain state laws, which he does not have the authority to say that I'm not going to enforce the law in this particular area in Philadelphia County. He's not the emperor of Philadelphia, he's the district attorney. He's taken an oath to enforce the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He also has applied the law differently in the prosecution of private individuals versus police officers. When a police officer is charged in Philadelphia with a crime, suddenly he has a very strong desire to prosecute police officers, and we have determined also to deprive them of certain constitutional rights. So as a result of that, the House of Representatives, on a bipartisan basis, impeached Mr. Krasner, and Mr. Krasner has filed an action, it's now in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, saying that the basis of the impeachment is not lawful under the Constitution. So we're waiting for a decision right now of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court relative to that issue. And assuming we're given the green light to proceed against Mr. Krasner, this will only be the second impeachment trial in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in the last 100 years. The only other impeachment trial was in 1994. That involved Justice Rolf Larson of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And he had already been convicted of a number of crimes. So unlike Mr. Krasner, who has not been convicted of any crimes, that was an impeachment process that was over before it even started. I'm also involved right now in reviewing the potential for the enactment of an antitrust law in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We are the only state in the United States that does not have an antitrust law at the state level. Obviously, we have antitrust provisions at the federal level, particularly the Sherman and Clayton Acts, that regulate much of our business activity. But the Democrats and the Attorney General's office believe that we need a state antitrust law. So we'll be taking a hard look at that and making sure that it is a balanced law, if we do pass any law whatsoever, balance for the protection of business and balance for the protection of the citizens of the Commonwealth. I'm also involved significantly in the issue of the legalization of marijuana. As a member of the Health Committee, I've taken the lead in the Health Committee, frankly, in opposition to the legalization of marijuana. Again, the Democrats and a limited number of Republicans in the General Assembly and in the Senate are seeking to legalize marijuana. We have held hearings with various stakeholders that have testified from across the United States and states that have legalized marijuana, as well as in foreign countries. And we have learned a couple of things through these hearings. Number one, the social, legal, and medical costs of legalizing marijuana far outweigh the tax revenues. So that's a significant concern to us, that we're going to be where tobacco is now. In 20 to 30 years, we're going to be spending billions of dollars to tell people don't use this product, which is somewhat ironic because we claim to have the people's best interests at heart, their health, welfare, and safety. And yet we're going to be putting a drug into society to legalize it. And the only true purpose of it is to numb the minds of our citizens. If you need it medically, you can get it now. But to have it available just as a recreational use when the social costs are so high, I just don't see the advantage of that within our society. I've also worked on some legislation to reform the death penalty. I've tried death penalty cases and I have significant familiarity with the death penalty, and it does need some reform. I still believe it's an effective tool under appropriate circumstances, such as mass murders. But it does need some reform to make certain that when we do implement it, we know with great certainty that the person is deserving of the death penalty. And finally, I would say this to you. I have noticed since the Democrats have taken control of the House of Representatives, and they control it by one vote. And even though you control it by one vote, that gives you the authority to control the calendar. So we only hear bills that the Democrats want to call up. A Republican bill will not be called up if the Democrats decide they don't want to debate the issue or consider it. So even though we're only down one vote, that's still a significant deficit for us. But I have found that the agenda of the Democrats was first to defund the police. And that didn't work. That backfired on them across the nation. And so now they're looking to other ways to limit the consequences of criminal conduct. They're now saying that they want restorative justice. And we're hearing that significantly within the Judiciary Committee. Restorative justice means no prison time. They are preferring that we bring in the victim and the defendant and we have group therapy. And the consequences of that are we'll all go home being friends and we'll move forward in life. So that's now their proposal to individuals who commit crime, group therapy, the kumbaya criminal justice system. They also are seeking early release from prison by reducing potential sentences by 25%. If they enroll in a program in prison, they want to cut the sentence that the judge gave them by 25%. They also do not want any life in prison for murder. They feel that everyone should be allowed to have parole considered in their circumstance. So we've gone from defunding the police to trying to effectively lessen the consequences within the criminal court system for those who commit crime. So the battle continues. I frankly enjoy this battle, and I look forward to it and representing you in Harrisburg as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bonner. I'll make mention that you guys will want to slide those mics a little bit closer to you when you speak. We're having some trouble hearing in the back. Now we will hear from Stephanie Shalala. Or you can come up here.
I'm not as tall as the men in the room, so I'm going to stand up here so everybody can see me. So I see a lot of smiling, happy, good morning faces that are familiar friends. So thank you for coming today and taking the time on this beautiful day to be here. This is the second year of my first term. So as you know, in the House of Representatives, we run every 2 years, and I'm wrapping up my first term. So I serve the 12th district. That's comprised of 3 townships: Jackson, Adams, and Cranberry. Around those are boroughs: Seven Fields, Mars, Valencia, Harmony, Zelienople, and I serve all of those as well. And I think it was Ethan Nicholas in the back who coined the phrase that this is the Tetris piece of Butler County, and it is. So I have a great district. I'm really pleased and honored to be here and to serve all of you. In the House, I am on the Judiciary Committee with Representative Bonner, as he mentioned, and I am on the Education Committee. I also serve as the Secretary of Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness, which has brought me a tremendous amount of fulfillment as we work to support our first responders, especially in this area. I have been appointed to serve as a member on the Pennsylvania Artificial Intelligence Task Force, which is a growing area of focus, as it should be, as we start to see more automation both in business and in our personal lives. I am co-chair of the bicameral House and Senate Cybersecurity Caucus, I think in large part to my background, which is a data privacy and cybersecurity attorney for the better part of the last decade. And I also serve as an executive member of the Pennsylvania Crime Commission and Juvenile Delinquency. So I serve in that specific capacity on the School Safety and Security Committee. So as I said, I'm wrapping up my first term, and I was here the last year and the year before that. And I've learned a lot, I've seen a lot, and what I'd like to share is a little bit about that. We've seen a growing government alongside a shrinking economy, an emboldened disregard for liberty alongside its delicate balance of law and order, as Representative Bonner mentioned. So I won't get into the details on that. He did a fantastic job covering what we're seeing come through judiciary. And we've also seen a misguided education system. To that end, I've been focused on restoring a sense of normalcy, having stability and predictability in our economy by right-sizing our government, producing domestic energy, as the senators mentioned, and helping taxpayers and businesses. I've been especially dedicated to brightening our children's futures with a quality education that is focused on the correct curriculum, and restoring the family unit and parental involvement in their children's lives. I've also recently introduced legislation to expand the exemption from inheritance tax for all 529 accounts held by Pennsylvania residents. Not all 529 accounts are currently exempt, and I'm trying to make sure that they become exempt from inheritance tax. Whether that would be saving for a child's future in college, or, as we learned through COVID, the invaluableness of our trades. I want to make sure that our parents and our families and people who care about children are able to save productively and efficiently for them. We've also passed my data privacy bill, which will give Pennsylvanians important and meaningful say over the sale, collection, and use of their personal data online, of course, carving out for small businesses. In the same vein, I have a bill to help secure our nation and critical infrastructure from foreign adversaries and attacks, which is becoming a growing concern with the border and the state of the world. I will not take up a ton of time this morning, but I wanted to give a brief overview of that, and I look forward to representing you in Harrisburg and continuing to get into our panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Shalala. Now we'll hear from Aaron Bernstein. I double checked my notes. I got things a little bit screwed up this morning, so you guys didn't know that.
Everybody hear me? You good? All right, I wanted thumbs up because. So thank you guys so much. My name's Aaron Bernstein. I have the 8th Legislative District. I serve on the Commerce, Finance, and Gaming Oversight Committee. And first and foremost, thank you guys for being in the room. I think we have a great team of representatives and senators We all work on our own kind of issues. You have ag issues, we go to Elder. You have finance stuff, we go to Scott. We have, all the things that we do in the house. And, but really what our best ideas come from and what the greatest opportunities that we have as legislators are one-on-one conversations and also events like this. And that's because I think every single one of our bills that we've worked on, I know obviously I work with these three more than the Senate, but every single thing that we have come up with has come as an idea or in a conversation at an event or in one-on-one conversations. And I think as we focus on what we need to do to move Pennsylvania forward, it's actually listening to people and understanding what are the things that are relevant in people's lives that we have the ability to impact. And oftentimes impact means, as Scott said earlier, just get the heck out of the way, right? Get government out of your way. So we have a lot of issues that are happening, not just here in Western Pennsylvania, not in Butler County, but really across the entire Commonwealth. And my concern is not necessarily what's happening right here in Butler County, but rather what I see happening across the Commonwealth that has the ability to infiltrate right here into Butler County. The things that are being done in our schools are absolutely absurd and ridiculous, and Stephanie's leading on those things. We are talking about environments where we're just letting people out of jail. We need to put systems in place. Our district attorney isn't going to do that here in Butler County, but who knows what a future district attorney may or may not do, right? These are the things that we have to do to put safeguards in place while allowing individual liberties and freedom. So I'm not going to talk a lot. I just want to mostly leave this up for Q&A, but thank you guys so much for the opportunity and look forward to connecting with y'all soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Bernstein. Representative Marcy Mostello.
Thank you very much. I hope I don't look lazy by sitting here with my other two colleagues standing up to talk. I apologize. But I am Marcy Mostello. I am not Michelle Mostello. She is in the back of the room, as everybody always gets us confused. I do serve on the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, the Appropriations Committee, the Gaming Committee, and Liquor Control Committee. And, each of them has such, such different issues that we're all facing. And a couple of the things, the Appropriations Committee, this is my second year on that. And what I love about the Appropriations Committee is we have the opportunity as members of the committee to interview the secretaries of each of these departments. As we know, when the governor gives his budget, then the secretaries come before the Appropriations Committee where we can ask questions and, ask them, what do you plan to do with this money? What happened to the money from last year that we gave you that was never used? This year, we talked a lot about, in the governor's budget address, he talked about a $500 million that he wanted to do site development. That is absolutely wonderful that he wants to do that because we have a lot of areas here in Butler County, southeast, southwest of Butler County, that we can develop that area. But my main concern is what a couple of the other panelists mentioned, are regulations, permitting. Is DEP going to be in everybody's way once these sites, when we spend $500 million to develop these sites, is DEP going to get out of the way and stop stepping on your throats of what you can do and what you can't do? So those are some of my concerns. Obviously, we interviewed all of the secretaries, and it's a very interesting, sometimes boring process, but it is necessary just to dig down to what they really want to do with the money, our money that we are giving them, and how it's actually being used. Some of the things that I'm working on, we have a lot of nonprofits in this room, and a lot of you raise money. And I had some calls from actually some of my volunteer fire departments with modernizing our small gains of chance laws and the regulations that we have facing us, where you can't raise money, you can't use a credit card, you can't do this. This state is all about can'ts. So we have to come up with ways that we can, and just leave us alone, as we talked all about. Just stay out of our lives, let us raise our own money. I know the fire department, some of them in this room, Connequanest, Butler Township, You guys do a heck of a job at raising money, and I really don't think government should be in your way to raise as much money as you can. I used to work at a nonprofit, the Butler County Humane Society, and it was wonderful when we could raise money. But when you're given limits on what you can do, what you can't do, it gets very annoying, and that has to change. On the Liquor Committee, I am proud to say I did have a bill pass, both passed the House and the Senate. The governor just signed it. In December, we did a ceremonial signing a few months ago. And it has to do with cutting regulations. When liquor licenses can be transferred, specialty liquor license, how they are transferred. And a lot of these, the bills that I'm introducing, that I have introduced, that I have passed, have all come from you. When people call my office, when they see me out, when they text me and said, Morris, we got a problem with something. So tell me more about it. I call them, I listen, what's the issues? And then we make some changes. We do what we can. I do what I can. I talk to my colleagues and say, are you guys having the same problems in Lawrence County, down in Cranberry? Mercer, same thing. So that's what it's all about. And it's really about listening to our elected officials. A lot of elected officials in this room are municipal leaders because they hear it firsthand. They're our first line of defense on what's really going on in their communities and how I, as a legislator, can help them and how I can put my contacts to use for them. So the Liquor Committee Gaming Oversight, like I said, approach, we've got the budget coming up. Hopefully it's coming up. I don't know. Last year we didn't pass it till December, so not sure how that's gonna go. Some of the other things I'm still working on, especially with agriculture, I still want to bring the FFA back to Butler County VOTEC. We had it for years. We lost it somehow, and just trying to get it back because kids today need something to do. I know there was a lot of talk about education. We've got some schools now in Butler County that are doing some great things. Summit, Broad Street, in our city of Butler, that are doing a lot of ag programs. And I just want to make sure that they have an opportunity to carry on that love for ag into high school, into the FFA, where they can do this. And if anybody doesn't know what the FFA is, the Future Farmers of America, they wear those really cool blue jackets, the corduroy jackets. So I really want to get that back into the schools to get them away from their phones, get them away from their iPads, and actually do something outside and watch something grow, plant something, and learn more about it. But those are just some of the areas of interest that I have, that I've been working on, and look forward to what you all have to say.
Thank you, Representative Marcy. Stella? At this time, we're going to turn questioning over to the media. I know we have the Butler Eagle up front here. I have 2 questions on the card. Is there anything else you guys want to ask before I go with that?
You can go with those first.
Okay. I'll start with that. We'll do that. So the question is, what will legislators do to avoid job loss from the implementation of artificial intelligence in design jobs, writing jobs, manufacturing jobs, education, etc.? I'm going to leave this to you guys to decide who would like to respond.
I guess I'm the spokesperson on this. Okay. So far what we've seen is a lot of unilateral movement from the executive branch. The governor has started to permit into areas that we don't have legislative oversight, the use of artificial intelligence, primarily in the public sector, where he can kind of, leverage his position to either grow the use of artificial intelligence or limit its use. He has fully embraced it in a lot of different ways, anywhere from voter registration to the actual performance of a public sector job. He says that it will only be used in limited circumstances, and we're at the very nascent stages of seeing this play out in real time. So we're keeping an active eye on it to watch, but it's something that I take personally as a representative to make sure and keep an eye on him and try to see in the private sector, how is this being used, and talk with all of our businesses. We've had multiple small business roundtables. We're trying to plan some medium and larger business roundtables to get an idea of how we can embrace it without hurting ourselves, hurting our people, and hurting our economy. There's a lot of good that can come from the use of automation, whether it's, coming up with a basic list or creating an agenda, things that are great and really time savers. But when that starts to encroach into areas of substantive work, we get a little concerned because although we have human error, that artificial intelligence is also subject to human error because it just basically regurgitates whatever you put into it on the back end. So another thing that we've seen is an attempt to, there was a recent bill about artificial intelligence, and we're seeing the effects of that. It's just, they're trying to limit it, but I don't know how we can limit something that is so quickly evolving. So we're trying to figure out whether it's best to do through regulation or through legislation. And the only answer I have right now is that we're at the beginning stages and we need to keep an eye on it. I wish there was more to say, but it's constantly changing. I mean, every day you have something new out.
Thank you. Next question. Will there be a pointed effort to avoid a budget impasse after the funding for education was delayed last year?
I hope not. That's probably not the most popular answer, but here's the facts. The facts are that this governor consistently proposes massive spending increases across the board. So I'll share with you a little bit. Can you guys hear me okay or no? Yeah? Okay. No? So I think what we've seen is this governor has proposed massive spending increases. I think, what are we, about a $10 billion increase he's looking at right now or something, right? $10 billion increase in spending. So, people say, well, you guys need to go get together and work it out and figure it out together, right? Okay, that's great. So they want a $10 billion increase. Let's say I'm really good at negotiating and, maybe it gets a $7 billion increase. Anybody else, you guys want taxes increased? Everybody good with that? Right? Doesn't make sense. So the truth is that sometimes the answer has to be no. And we have to start with the answer being no. My kid came to me, she's 4, and although Marcy gives her candy whenever they're together all the time, and wanted like an entire thing of Oreos before she went to bed. Well, not only was she not getting those Oreos, the entire thing of Oreos, she wasn't getting any Oreos before you go to bed. Right? So the answer has to be no. And the problem is that the Democrats also hold the House and the Democrats hold the governor's spot, but the Senate's the backstop. And those guys have been doing a heck of a job over there. They haven't been doing a good job. They've been doing an exceptional job of stopping what we've seen. The last thing is this. We consistently talk about that we have, we need to spend more on our schools, right? We hear that over time and time again. We spend the third most of any state in the entire country. We spend over $20,000 per student K through 12. I pay about $6,000 to send my kid to St. Killian's. They waste money in some of these places. Some places do a good job of it. They do an exceptional job of it. I saw John Kennedy in the back room. Mars is doing a very good job of the things that they're doing, right? There are other schools, not necessarily here, but where this money ends up going. And you can ask him, it doesn't go to Mars of what happens in Harrisburg. It goes to these places in Philadelphia where they're spending $30,000 per student K through 12. And they have 0 kids that are proficient in any of these math, reading, anything at all. So listen, the answer is sometimes the answer has to be no. And this governor needs to get his priorities in line and understand that we cannot be spending this kind of money.
If I can make a comment relative to the budget, and can you hear me? Can you hear me any better? Okay. The governor has proposed 2 budgets so far. The first budget had a $2.5 billion deficit. He did not balance that budget. We had to go into reserves in order to balance the budget. This budget is $3.5 billion deficit. So in 2 budgets, we are at a $6 billion budget deficit. So we have to go into reserves because he is not balancing the budget with current revenues. And we have about $14 billion in reserves. The Independent Fiscal Office indicates that within 4 years, those reserves will be done. And the problem will be that we have structurally built in a deficit of about $3 billion per year. So in those 4 years, we're going to have an overall budget deficit of around $12 to $14 billion that we're suddenly going to face a fiscal crisis. How will we balance the budget now? Because the reserves are gone. Well, the only way we're going to balance that budget is through significant spending cuts. We all know government does not cut spending. So that's not going to happen in 4 years from now. So what is going to happen? We're going to have to raise taxes significantly. We have an aging population. We are the fastest aging state in the nation. The elderly will not be able to afford increased taxes. And if we do it on business the way we have in the past, we're not going to attract new business to Pennsylvania. So we have to take a much more cautious approach in spending and taxation in Pennsylvania. Now, the governor is saying that we have a crisis in our schools based upon the Commonwealth Court decision of last year. The Commonwealth Court decision did not say we had to spend more money on schools because, as Representative Bernstein indicated, we are spending money on schools. So if you're hearing it from the public school system that we need more money, let's truly look at the facts. In Pennsylvania, we spend $22,000 per student from kindergarten through 12th grade. We rank 7th in the nation in spending. On average, we spend $75,000 per teacher per year. We rank 12th in the nation. We also have the 14th ranked school system on average students per class. In the last 25 years, student enrollment has dropped 8%. We have 140,000 less students in our public schools today than we had 20 years ago. But interestingly, we've added 21,000 employees to our school system and a 40% growth in administrators. So our problem isn't with the taxpayers funding the schools. Our problem is what is going on within the schools. And yet, with all this spending that we're having, we rank 28th in the nation by the U.S. Department of Education on educational quality. So we have a number of issues going on in our schools. But the issue here is not spending. But you'll hear that over the next year, that we're not spending enough. We are spending enough. The question that the Commonwealth Court said is, are we spending it fairly? Now, the one criticism that you can make of state government is that we do not fund schools the way that other states do. We mostly rely on local property tax to fund our schools. Pennsylvania ranks 42nd in the nation in state contributions to local school districts. We need to reform the tax structure. And if we reform the tax structure, we will bring equity into our schools and will help those poorer school districts that don't have the tax base through their properties within their school districts. So I would support a tax reformation where the state takes on more responsibility through progressive taxes such as income tax or sales tax. And we give the elderly and the poorer school districts a tax break because it's just a heavy, heavy burden for them. So we really need more tax reform, not more spending. Thank you.
Can I jump in real quick too? Just to say that it's in none of our best interests to have a late budget. We want our school districts, nonprofits, other government agencies to have predictability in the amount of money they have to spend. And to the best of our ability, we want to have an on-time, balanced budget. But there's many issues involved in making that done. But the other message I want to say is part of the problem that seems to be starting to line up now is that not only do we have some difficult budget decisions to make, the governor has put lots of other issues on the table, and he wants them all done by July 1st also. And these are big, big issues for which he doesn't even have the specifics ready yet. Let me give you some examples. As mentioned earlier, we have a court decision asking for major new resources for funding for K through 12 education. The governor says, I support doing something there, but his budget does not talk about that whatsoever. We have the governor's plan, and I put the word plan in quotes, for a complete reinvention of our higher ed system. There's no specifics there. He has a few sound bites, but again, he says, we're going to have this done by July 1st. He's talking about a radical change in our energy policies here in Pennsylvania, mandating a 50% renewable energy by 2031. Again, not many specifics out there, but I know a radical change like that is not going to happen before July 1st. He's talking about marijuana legalization, another huge issue. I am very much against that, but he's put that on the table as something he wants to get done right now, as well as having a minimum wage increase. He wants that done right now. Folks, we can't do all those things and balance our budget by July 1st. It's not going to happen. Our sales have to be trimmed, and we have to think about priorities first. And I think one of those priorities is the blueprint for how our state spends money each year. That's called our budget, and we got to get that done. That's something we have to do, should do, and should do it in a prudent manner and get it done on time. And that's my goal. Let's focus on that first. We have all these extraneous other things out there. We can talk about those. But we have to quit saying that we're going to do all this by July 1st.
What can we do as business owners to advocate to avoid the black brownout? As manufacturers in Butler County, this would be very disruptive to our businesses. We watched how a movement by the private sector to change a Department of Energy ruling helped the Cleveland Cliffs. What can be done?
I'm going to say something unpopular. Cleveland Cliffs, and I have more than a handful of family members who work there or did work there, all the way back through when it was AK. Can everyone hear me? I'm seeing people in the back with their hand up. We did not yet save Cleveland Cliffs. We did not yet save it. So I hate to burst anyone's bubble on that point, but all they did, and I'm going to say this too, it's because it's an election year. So all they did was kick the can down the road. That was going to come back to bite us again and again and again until we get legislation in place that will actually stop the overreach of the fourth arm of government now, these agencies that are filled with unelected bureaucrats who are there before any of us get elected and are there after any of us are elected. We are not going to be able to reliably say that we have stopped this overreach. I think that it's necessary for the media to be on board. They are critical and crucial partners in this. Our entire community, it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat, it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican. Right now, we need to be Western Pennsylvanians. And we need to band together, whether you are a worker, management, any of it. We need to come together, union, non-union, and we need to rally against all of this overreach that is going to absolutely kill our industry here. Because when the economy goes down, when the energy sector goes down, so does our security, both financial and domestic, like actual national security. We are becoming a laughingstock, and we're seeing how it's playing out on the federal stage, on the global stage, and we're feeling it today. And it is going to affect all of our businesses. We have so many that are closing, and they're hardworking people, and we have people who want to work. And we have small business owners who are trying to find people bending over backwards, offering benefits packages and high wages, way above the proposed minimum wage increase, and they still can't retain people. So we have a governor who said during his campaign that he was against RGGI. He was against it, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, because he supposedly knew all of the failures that would come with it, that it would be catastrophic for our area. And yet, when the Commonwealth Court handed it to him on a silver platter, saying that it was unconstitutional to have entered us into RGGI, what did he do? Anyone know? Shout it out. He appealed it. He appealed it to the Supreme Court. He did not need to do that. And as a lawyer, I'm telling you, that was a non-precedential memorandum opinion. He appealed it supposedly because he needed to protect the authority of the office in future cases to enter into these types of orders. That's not true. That's patently false. It was a non-precedential decision that was limited entirely to our entry into the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. It is going to kill our energy sector. And just like Cleveland Cliffs, if we don't all come together and continue to rally, I mean, kicking the can down the road, don't get me wrong. I'm happy that it's not a pressing thing right now, right? I'm thrilled. Good. We saved Cleveland Cliffs for today. But that's the part I don't want you to forget. It's for today. And we have to keep electing people that are good representatives, and we need to speak out to our representatives. And I don't mean just my state house. I mean federal. I mean the Senate. I mean the state Senate. I mean federal Senate. I mean the governor's office. I mean all of your elected officials, the commissioners. We couldn't have a better group of people right now to rally for our area. And we need to make sure that we continue to come together as a community to do that. And as business owners, band up with your employees too, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Let me add a little bit to that. Again, I'm going to stress what Stephanie just said, which is we have a governor who said he was against Reggie. And not only did he could have withdrawn the executive order on day one of taking office. He did not do that, even though he said he's against Reggie. When the court case came, striking this down, he could have accepted that and moved on. He didn't do that. He appealed that decision. But number three, in addition to not dropping the opposition to that court ruling, he proposed his own plan, which is a mini Reggie, done a different way, but it's really the same outcome. It's going to force us to pay higher energy costs. All ratepayers in Pennsylvania would be paying a higher energy bill, upwards of 30% higher than what you're paying today. And how many people think they're low today? He's talking about a 30% increase on top of that. Through this mini Reggie that he proposed. So that's like doubling down on what Governor Wolf was trying to do. The other thing I wanted to say, the Cleveland Cliffs example, which was caused by government policy and caused by the interpretation by non-elected people of how they want to achieve their government policy. That's a problem, a huge problem across the board. But in addition to that, we have to think about, we need a more robust transmission system nationwide. And Cleveland Cliffs could be at the center of that. They make a vital component to making our transmission system better. We should not be shutting them down. We should be expanding them, doubling them, tripling them. They're the only producer in the country of these components for the electric transmission system, and they should be growing, not being hounded with the specter of being shut down. The products they make not being usable after 5 years from now. That's the exact opposite of what we should be doing. We should be unleashing companies like that to build our infrastructure better than it is, to put up with the demands for electricity that our society is going to continue to have going forward. So, thank you.
Just one last thing to add about that. We have the energy right here in Pennsylvania, and I still don't understand why, we just can't move forward with that. I know some businesses in this room are having issues right now with their energy and utility costs and blackouts and brownouts and everything like that. So, with what's happening with this administration closing down power plants and this talk about, revitalizing sites and economic development and all this, that's all wonderful and good. But when you don't have the energy to back it up and these businesses can't run, manufacturing can't do what they need to do, it's just not going to happen. So, we need the cheap, abundant, reliable energy resources that we have, and we have to stop the war on the fossil fuels that's happening everywhere. And like Senator Hutchinson said, it's moving our product out. We need to build, I still, I talk about it, it's not so much here, but moving LNG out of Pennsylvania to where it needs to go. We could boom with that if we would just, and I'm sorry to say it, environmentalists that are very concerned about the environment, I think we've proven time and time again, what we're doing is very safe and effective. And there's no reason that we can't build these terminals out east and move the product that we have and build out. But Pennsylvania has got to stop this war on fossil fuels that's going on.
Thank you. I want to get one in from the radio if we can. You guys, you have a question?
Senator Hudson, you mentioned the LC plan, Bureau.
You want to come up here to the podium, please?
To the mic or something here.
That'll help.
You mentioned the energy plan that Bureau's been pushing, and then also specifically, he recently announced a month or two ago that the state government 50% will be fueled by solar energy. It kind of seems like that's a bit of a test run for the governor to see how energy will work, that type of solar energy will work in the future. How are you looking at that announcement by the governor?
There's two parts to it.
The microphone. Ask a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, just about these. A couple of months ago, but maybe a month ago, Shapiro announced 50% of state government will be funded by, energy. We'll have energy from the solar energy. Just want to know, by 2027, he said that's the goal. They're building 10 new solar plants across the Commonwealth. Just want to know what you thought of that decision.
Number one, it's always disturbing to me when the administration makes decisions like that on their own as in an executive fashion without input from the General Assembly. But let me tell you the practical effect of what that does. Number one, he said that the governor said that some of these intermittent resources, 10 new solar facilities being built in Pennsylvania. But the reality is they're not built yet. And the other reality is this. For every megawatt produced by one of our base load energy sources, whether that's nuclear, coal, natural gas, for every megawatt of electricity produced by them, you need 7 megawatts of intermittent sources to make up for that. Because again, these intermittent sources they're not always on. The other thing I wanted to say is that the governor's announcement is a paper transaction. It means we're going to say we're doing this wonderful thing, but it's not really changing anything. It just he'll get a certification from the energy supplier that we guarantee that this energy was produced by solar or wind, and that doesn't mean it's a paper transaction saying, well, we'll say that this production over here is what's powering state government. But in the end, what that does mean is we will pay higher energy bills for state government because we are paying for these higher cost energy sources. So on his own, he made a decision that the taxpayers of Pennsylvania are going to pay for more expensive energy sources so that he can make an announcement that state government is becoming more green. And I just think it's a great headline grabber for those who think that's a great goal. For people like me who think it's not necessarily a worthy goal, but it's also it's being paid for by you and me, and all the taxpayers of Pennsylvania will be paying higher energy bills for state government going forward.
I would just like to add to this as well. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, wonderful. As chairman of the Senate Ag Committee, we've been dealing with this issue with solar panels for a number of years now, and it's very disturbing to a degree because the amount of solar panels we're going to need by 2030 is we're going to need 75 to 80,000 acres of solar panels. 1 megawatt of electricity takes 5 to 7 acres of solar panels to create. So, I mean, as chairman of the Ag Committee, I'm worried about the loss of prime farmland because we've had this discussion with DEP and DCNR and everybody, and nobody wants to put them on a strip mine ground someplace. They want to find a nice flat level field like housing developers do, where they have to do minimal amount of work, and are close to a main power line, so they have minimal amount of money tied up in getting their solar panels done and getting them into the grid. But that's just something I'm going to let you know and be aware of, that if you don't like to see solar panels, you're going to see a whole lot more of them, because it's going to take 75 to 80,000 acres of solar panels by 2030 just to meet what the governor has proposed to meet our green energy goals. So I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Okay, we have one here. Yesterday, former nurse that was sentenced to crimes, including killing patients at Butler County nursing homes. What legislation exists in is in consideration to prevent something like this from happening again?
I've actually worked with a couple of the families on that who had in my district, and sorry, my chair was like broke. So a couple of the things that we're looking at, and one of the problems that we have to try to figure out is the complexity of how do you not let individuals slip through the cracks. And we're going to be soon reaching out to the health networks with you folks, because we think that's really important that everybody's on the same page, because here's what we also know. That nobody in these health networks wants people like that working in their facilities. But there's not really a centralized database, but there is kind of a centralized database that isn't necessarily always looked at. What the licensing requirements, there's a lot of complexities with it. What I can tell you is that we have had numerous conversations with both the professional, I have had with both the professional licensure committee, which deals with licensing. So that's one way to figure it out. And also the health committee, and that's kind of another way to figure it out. And the answer is probably it's somewhere in the middle, right? It's probably combination of a couple things. That being said, two things I think that are relevant for people to understand. Number one, criminals are going to commit crimes. They are indeed criminals. It's just about creating a system that catches them faster. But to act like something like this won't ever happen again, something like this is happening today. To act like something like this will never happen again it's just not true. We see, we consistently try to pass bills sometimes in Harrisburg that are reactionary because a specific circumstance happened. This does need to be looked at and evaluated, but we want to be making sure that we're doing this in a manner that doesn't penalize good working people. We've seen it with Second Amendment issues in Harrisburg. These guys will tell you all the time. It's unbelievable the fact that we can't get those on the left to figure out that people that are going to commit crimes, they just actually commit crimes anyway, regardless of what the law says, because they're indeed lawbreakers, right? We're going to have that same situation. But long story short, it's going to be a combination of a lot of different committees to try to figure this out. And next thing is this, it's not just a nurse issue. There's a variety of other types of those in the medical field that have access to these types of drugs, chemicals, things like that, that we also need to be making sure. Sure, this circumstance happened to be a nurse, but we have to be making sure that we're doing some things. So yeah, I spent a lot of time with these people. Horrible situation.
I think it's awful too. I mean, when you think of that, that could have been anyone's family member. But I do want to say too that in addition to needing legislation to, that would be suitable, like Representative Bernstein said, to actually stop this from happening, which it's more about, trying to limit it, I think, because like you said, it's always going to happen, unfortunately. What scares me is what we see come through that we have all voted against in the minority that we're in, and I'm sure that the senators have done their part to kill these bills on their side, But we've seen a recent bill that wants to prohibit employers, there's two ways that they're looking to do it, prohibit employers from accessing a background check for applicants. Let that sink in. That means that you have no control over your business, including if you're Independence Health System, to know who you're hiring. And it doesn't matter if they try to say that, oh, well, we'll just limit it to serious crime. Well, this was a serious crime. I mean, and small things can lead to big things. You have a right to know who you're hiring. And when you're dealing, especially in the health sector, as a person, you want to know that your loved one is being treated properly and by quality people of good moral character. So we've seen a bill come through, two bills, that try to prohibit employers from inquiring and accessing background checks, but also that would prohibit criminal records from following people after a certain amount of time. That's not fair. That's not a good idea. As a society, that's not a good idea. As an employer, that's not a good idea. So a lot of times we are not only trying to proactively create legislation, but we're always also trying to stop some of what we're seeing come through from extremists. This is just, and again, it follows sort of our opening discussion of this disregard for law and order.
If I can make one comment. This particular case was not a failure of the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system reacted and responded in accord with law. Frankly, this case was a death penalty eligible case. Interestingly, if you commit a murder in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the death penalty isn't automatically on the table. You also have to have aggravating circumstances to that murder. And an aggravating circumstance would be the killing of more than one person, as occurred in this particular case. So the death penalty was on the table, and a determination was made not to pursue it. And there are a lot of factors that go into that equation as to whether that penalty will be pursued. And I certainly understand all of those factors and why it may not have been pursued in this particular case. But the criminal justice system deals with the situation after it's occurred. And this was a problem that had to be detected either in the hiring process, as Representative Shalava indicated, or in the management of the facility. But I can tell you this, that our law enforcement agencies worked as the law required them to do so, and I compliment them for it.
Thank you.
How much of the 7 to 10 billion the governor is proposing is slated to increase Medicaid rates for providers of care? Don't look at me.
I don't know the specifics of that. However, I will say I think Medicaid reimbursement rates are worthy of increases. A couple years ago, in the emergency management area, we did increase Medicaid reimbursement rates for ambulance calls, and that was a great thing. It was an across-the-board way of getting more resources to our emergency responders that are really under the gun at this point, as far as not having enough folks running calls, not enough certified people in the field. So to the extent that we as a state government can help get resources to them, I think that's a great way to do that. Did we do enough? No, but it's certainly something that we did touch on. I'd like to do more in that field, as well as last year's budget also included increased Medicaid reimbursement for ambulance providers for their mileage reimbursement. So, those are two good examples. But in other areas, whether it's in hospital care, whether it's in pharmaceuticals, those kind of things, I think those are things that we should be talking about spending money on, not new programs, but how about helping those whether it's nursing homes, hospitals that are getting reimbursed far, far below what it actually costs for them to care for their patients. And they have to eat the difference. I think it is a legitimate thing for state government to increase those rates. And that's the kind of things that we should be talking about instead of creating all these new things, pie in the sky proposals and spending money on those. I would much rather be talking about Medicaid reimbursement rates.
Our Medicaid system is a disaster. I would suggest that it's the primary reason that we see hospitals failing, and the primary reason why we see larger institutions swallowing up our smaller independent hospitals. Medicaid reimbursement is about 40% of actual cost. And when the hospitals and the physicians are receiving 40% of actual cost, I'm surprised they've survived as long as they have. But I can tell you, in the instance of the Grove City Medical Center, the Medicaid reimbursement rate was a primary reason we could not survive as a small independent hospital. The government forced us into a merger. And now we see, even with the larger hospitals, they're struggling as well. So this is a crisis. It's one that has been going on for decades, and it's one that has a very difficult solution, and that is government must be able to pay its fair share for cost, because otherwise you're going to see just the strongest survive. And the strongest survives means the major facilities that have significant reserves, but ultimately those reserves will run out too. So this is a crisis, it needs to be addressed, and it's, in my opinion, the primary failure of the healthcare system in America today.
Thank you. Question here, wonder if there's any update regarding radar for local police.
There is not. I mean, I don't know if you guys
know. No new updates. It has passed the Senate on multiple occasions. How it ends, I don't know, but you know, I believe it has passed the Senate, I think, two terms now. You know, after, you know, originally when radar came out, it was a novel new technology. That was back in the 1970s. Now that 49 states allow locals to use radar, it seems like Pennsylvania should also allow the local police to use radar also. You know, the technology is not new anymore. It's pretty simple. It's cost effective for our local governments. And I think it's a good tool if the municipalities want to use it, and I think we should allow them to use it.
And I would just say, I'm on the Transportation Committee, and I had my concerns about this a number of years back, as this being a cash cow for communities. But they put a cap into it. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head right now. Of a certain percent of your budget can only be made up of fines from radar fines, I guess. So it's not like you can have a small community where you can make $200,000 in fines off of speeding tickets and basically fund your budget for your community. It's a set amount of what your budget is all that you can collect in fines off of speeding tickets to fund your budget. So that sort of kind of gave me a little bit more comfort in it, because I was a no for a long time, but we did that a couple years ago, and it's passed several times, but I don't know when it'll ever get to the locals, but when it gets there, I hope it does.
Any further discussion on school district consolidation where feasible?
I love this one. Yeah, merge them up. Yeah, so a couple things. Number one, there is, in fact, I know Elder has worked on this on a couple different things. I think that was an issue that you talked about in several of your races. Here's the problem with school consolidation. I am now convinced that it will happen because of the lawsuit that dealt with the funding of schools. And you're now going to be, several of them are going to be forced into mergers. But how many of you guys out here are hunters? Anybody hunt? All right. hardest animals in Pennsylvania to hunt are
School mascot.
school mascots. That's correct. So, school mascots are the hardest animals. So, there were 2 districts that were all about merging that I was having discussions with. The biggest reason why they wouldn't even do the analysis of it was because the one side wanted to know what the colors and mascot were going to be, and the other side wasn't so concerned about the colors, but the mascot was the biggest issue. This is not a joke. This is real life, okay? We have way too many school districts. What do you have, 500? 499? 500? Yeah, 500 school districts in Pennsylvania. So all for doing those and merging those things together. I think it's going to come down from the state. If you really want to get them merged, here's how you do it. You actually pass real meaningful school choice, and several of these districts will just go away and be forced to merge into something else, and those districts will be the ones that are the worst.
I would just like to add quickly, I had the only state merger in the last 50 years, probably, when Center and Monaca merged and became Central Valley. And Central Valley is now a powerhouse in football, but that's beside the point. But at the time, I was just newly elected at the time, and Governor Rendell put up about $500,000 to help with the logistics of the merge. And they left the mascot and all that up to the students, the families in the communities. You decide on the school name, you decide on the mascot. They did, and it became what it is today, Central Valley. It's been done very well, but a lot of the problems with merging schools is one school district has a lot of funds, another school district has a lot of debt, and they can't get the debt and funding to line up without some state intervention, because a district that has a lot of money doesn't want to take on a school district that has a lot of debt, because then their taxpayers are going to end up funding more, raise their taxes to cover the debt of the other school district. And that's where a lot of the problem comes in, I think, is you have a lot of richer school districts that smaller school districts could merge into very easily. I can name you half a dozen in my district alone right now. I think Beaver County should have about 5 school districts instead of 13, but that's another topic for another day. Anyhow, that seems to be part of the problem as well, is it's not the logistics of it. I mean, they're right on top of each other. I mean, the buses drive through municipalities to go to different schools. It's just the funding of the economics of having money and not having money, and without the state stepping in and wanting to put in some money to make up the difference or help ease the burden. I think that's where it's going to have to come down to again. Like I said, Governor Rendell put up about $500,000 to make the Central Valley merger complete and happen, and it's worked out very well, but we need to do more on our part to make that happen, because there are way too many school districts, I believe. And then by having smaller school districts with small classes and small graduating classes, you're doing a disservice to the students, because they're not getting the true education that the bigger school districts have the funding to have more classes and more science classes and more English classes and French and Italian and Chinese and all these classes they have. I mean, some schools are trying to do some online stuff now with schools for language classes and things like that, but still it's an inconvenience, and it just is a disservice to these schools that graduate 50 or 60 students to not be able to have them have a better education. That's my thoughts.
The other option that's out there that is a very, very positive thing, and it doesn't work in every county, it doesn't work in every place, but it's not necessarily the merging of districts, right? Like in Elders, that made sense to merge, and there were some things there, but it's also the disbanding of some districts. So I'll give you an example. Like I live just across the border in Lawrence County. I live in Mohawk School District. It is a large geographic area. Mohawk just needs to go away. And then some kids need to go to Union, some kids need to go to Shenango, some kids need to go to Lowell, right? Because oftentimes what happens is when you merge, different animal out there, but oftentimes what happens is you have too many kids for the building that's set up, and the teachers aren't right. Like there's all kinds of different weird things that occur with that, right? Sometimes it's easier if a school district is graduating 100 kids a year and you can split them 15, 20 a school district, it makes a lot more sense. Now that doesn't work everywhere, but that's a real opportunity.
I'll just add that we're also trying to do it sort of in a roundabout way. So you have a de facto merger of sorts insofar as curriculum. So we are trying to expand broadband. That's a huge undertaking of this county. So as we start to spread broadband up into the northern parts of Butler County and elsewhere up into Mercer, what was the number? It's like 30 million or something that came back to accomplish this in the next couple years. And that's going to help with internet access, right? And connectivity. So with that becomes the sharing of AP courses and other advanced courses. And we also passed something through the House, I believe it's over in the Senate now, to let more kids take those courses, but then on top of taking the courses, have them honored in the PASHE system and then require that they also be honored at the private institutions too. So we're trying to expand the quality of education to more areas, even if the geographic area doesn't really, it isn't exactly conducive to that. And the trades too. Steamfitters is here.
Thank you. All right, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and you guys know if I ask one more question, that'll be the bomb that keeps us here for another 45 minutes, so we're not going to risk that. We got about 2 minutes before 10 o'clock, so I want to thank the panelists. Appreciate you giving up time out of your day today to be here and share with us. Much appreciated. Thank you. I want to remind everyone, if you don't mind, fill out the email sign-up sheet. Take a few minutes to fill out the Chamber's Government Affairs survey. I want to give special thanks to the Steamfitters Event Center and catering staff. And also to Weddings by Jeff Double for the decor you see here today. Thank you to everyone who attended and to our sponsors, Independent Health System, Pennsylvania American Water, Gateway Engineers, XTO Energy, Seneca Resources, National Fuel, Herbert, Rowland, and Grubik Incorporated, Butler County Manufacturing Consortium, Coherent, Butler County Tourism and Convention Bureau, IQC Consultants Incorporated, West Banco Bank, Armstrong, Energy Transfer, Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney, Univest Financial, Alliance for Nonprofit Resources, and the Steamfitters, Local Union 449. Let's make 2024 the best year yet for Western Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Armstrong has been a part of Butler County for over 60 years. We've run hundreds of miles of high-speed fiber, and we're not stopping. Your internet, television, and telephone connectivity is backed by a team of local technicians who are backed by their local office, who is backed by our 24/7 network operations team, as well as our 24/7 customer service center. Can the other guys say that? We didn't think so. Armstrong. Unmatched employees, unmatched technology, unmatched fiber network.